Hey guys, Gemma from ASD Rocks. I was having a really interesting conversation with my mum yesterday about Beau and his diagnosis, and prior to his diagnosis, now you guys would mostly know that Beau was diagnosed at the age of 2, and I was talking about when before he was 2, when I took him to I don't know what you would call it, like before they go to 3-year-old kinder, it's like daycare, I guess. And I started to take him to daycare. He would have been, I don't know, from when he was about 1, just a couple of days at daycare. Maybe he was a little bit older. I know he was definitely walking, but he walked pretty early. And I was talking about, you know, how she said, you know, how did that go? And I said, well, actually it was horrendous. It was terrible. I would drop him off and he would scream, and he would just cry and scream, and the people who were there would always sort of say to me, you know, just go, you know, he'll be better if you just leave, he'll be better. And I used to for the first couple of weeks, because he was only there 1 or 2 days, and it was only for a few hours. It was about, you know, getting your kids socialized and stuff. Not that I had any idea that he was autistic at that stage. I just thought he was quirky. But I used to stand out the front and look through the window and cry. I used to watch through the window and just cry and watch him cry and see how long it took him to settle. And I hated it. I hated doing this. And I would persist at going to this daycare and dropping him off. And I started saying to them, you know, I need to be in here and let him get used to the environment before I leave. And they were, you know, because they worked in childcare and they, you know, were experienced in what it was like when a parent hung around, they really wanted me to leave. They wanted to get rid of me. And I knew, my intuition told me that if I stayed and I got him used to the environment and then weaned myself back, that would work for him. But you don't want to be that mum that says, I know my kid, because then you're the pain in the ass mum. But then on the other hand, your intuition tells you what's right, what will work for your child. And that difficulty before, you know, pre-diagnosis of knowing your kid and knowing what's going to work for them, but also not wanting to be that pain in the ass problem mum. It's really tough stuff pre-diagnosis to work out what the right path is. And you know, once you've got a diagnosis, it's really easy to fight the system. It's really, really easy to say, hey, we have a diagnosis and this is what's going to work for my child. But without that diagnosis, I think it's, you know, it can only be harder to know your child and know their quirks and know what works for them, and demand that as a parent and not be seen as just being a difficult parent. So I guess, you know, there's no real point to this particular vlog except to say that getting a diagnosis and getting one early is only going to help you, but also to say stick with that intuition, because even though none of us want to be seen as that helicopter parent or that that pain in the ass parent that, you know, thinks that their child's different to every other child, you know, there are times that our children are different, and we need to listen to that intuition at a young age and fight for the rights of our kids that isn't concrete. It's just really hard to know what to fight for and what to let go when you're fighting yourself for a diagnosis in the first place. So yeah, just for those of you that are questioning your child, finding it difficult in situations like daycare or anything like that, I would suggest that you do pursue keeping them going there, because that's definitely been the kicking off point of me understanding how to get Beau receptive to new environments, me understanding how to get him to the point of not only going to daycare, but then to Southern Autistic School, then to Black Rock Primary School, and now into high school, where he's now just accepting of these new environments, and he will go into them understanding that this is a part and process. But this is part and process that's been, 13 years in the making. So it is really, really difficult. It's a really, really difficult time, especially at a very young age. Often when you haven't had a diagnosis yet, your child is displaying these behaviors that, they don't calm down. They're not doing what the other kids are doing. They're not calming down after this many hours of being there. You don't want to go against the professionals whose job it is, but you do know your child. So if you're dealing with any of these scenarios, if you're dealing with these situations, I'd really suggest that you start taking a look at getting a diagnosis, especially considering I've been speaking to a lot of people recently who have gotten a diagnosis after the age of 7 or 8. And the funding that they provide, it's just not there, not the same as it is when you get an early diagnosis. Getting that early diagnosis gives you not a label, but access to funds to help that child. Because let's face it, whether you get a diagnosis or not, if your child has a speech delay, they're going to need speech therapy. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. It doesn't matter whether it says blue elephant's disease or whether it says autism. They're going to need help. Now, you can either privately decide to, if you're struggling with the idea of a diagnosis, you can privately decide to go and pay for speech therapy because you don't want your child diagnosed, or you can use the system and actually get some help for your child in the way that they need it, so that the system is paying for exactly what it's meant to be paying for, and that is to help your child through speech therapy, occupational therapy, any of these things. Anyway, that's me for today. Hope it makes sense. I know it's been a really long time since I've been around, but I'm trying to fight back. So I'm coming back. I'm fighting back. I'll be there soon. I love you all. Good luck. Speak to you soon. ASD rocks.